There is a grain sitting in your pantry right now, hiding in plain sight. You have probably walked past it 100 times in the health food aisle without a second glance. It contains more protein than wheat, more iron than spinach, more calcium than milk. It survives droughts that would kill corn. It thrives in temperatures that would wilt rice paddies. Scientists at NASA have studied it as a potential crop for feeding astronauts on missions to Mars. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations has declared its protein superior in content and quality to traditional cereals. And yet, for 500 years, most of the Western world forgot it existed. The name is Amaranth, and the story of how it disappeared and why it matters now more than ever begins in the ruins of an empire. The archive opens in 1519, when a Spanish conquistador named Hernán Cortés landed on the coast of what is now Mexico with 600 men and 16 horses. He found something he did not expect. Not just gold, not just temples. He found a civilization of millions, sustained by a grain so nutritious, so deeply woven into every aspect of daily life, that destroying it became as important as destroying the temples themselves. The Aztecs called it huautli. They had been cultivating it for at least 8,000 years. According to archaeological evidence from the Tehuacan Valley, when Cortés arrived in Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, he discovered that 20,000 tons of amaranth grain flowed into the city each year as tribute from 17 provinces. Human carriers walked 20 to 30 miles daily along stone causeways, bearing amaranth to massive granaries called petlacali. The grain was everywhere. In the markets, in the homes, in the temples, alongside corn, beans, and chia. It formed the nutritional foundation of one of the largest civilizations in the Americas. But amaranth was not just food. It was sacred. During the month dedicated to the war god Huitzilopochtli, priests would heat amaranth seeds until they popped like tiny popcorn, then mix them with honey or agave syrup to form a dough. From this dough, they sculpted images of their gods. 200,000 people would gather annually for ceremonies where these sculptures were broken apart and eaten. A ritual of taking the divine into oneself. The Spanish watched these ceremonies with horror. To Catholic eyes, this looked dangerously similar to the Eucharist, to the consumption of the body of Christ. The parallel was intolerable. What followed was systematic erasure. The Spanish banned amaranth cultivation under penalty of having one's hands cut off. Fields were burned. Seeds were destroyed. Growing the plant became a crime punishable by death. The conquistadors understood something that modern nutritionists would only rediscover centuries later. Controlling what people eat is controlling who they are. Wheat, the grain of their Christian god, would replace the grain of the Aztec gods. And for 5 centuries, it largely did, but amaranth did not disappear entirely. It survived as a weed, growing wild in the cracks of the colonial system. Indigenous farmers grew it in secret, hiding seeds in their homes, passing them down through generations in acts of quiet defiance that one horticulturist at the UC Botanical Garden recently called a big middle finger to the conquistadors. In remote mountain villages from Guatemala to the American Southwest, the knowledge persisted. And in India, Nepal, and parts of Africa, where the grain had traveled through ancient trade routes, it continued to be cultivated openly, known by other names. Ramdana in Hindi, meaning God's own grain. Kiwicha in Quechua. Callaloo in the Caribbean. So what did these cultures know that the Spanish tried to erase? Let me tell you what is actually inside this tiny seed. 100 grams of raw amaranth grain contains 14 grams of protein. That is higher than wheat, higher than rice, higher than corn. But the protein story does not end with quantity. Amaranth is one of the rare plant sources that contains all 9 essential amino acids in meaningful amounts, making it what nutritionists call a complete protein. Most grains are deficient in lysine, an amino acid crucial for tissue repair and calcium absorption. Wheat protein contains only 1.4% lysine. Corn contains 1.5%. Amaranth contains between 5.2 and 6.1%. That is 2 to 3 times more of the amino acid that most grains lack entirely. The mineral profile tells the same story. 1 cup of uncooked amaranth provides 160% of your daily iron requirement. That is 7.6 milligrams per 100 grams. Enough to be meaningful for the billions of people worldwide who suffer from iron deficiency anemia. It provides 114% of daily magnesium, a mineral essential for hundreds of enzymatic reactions in the body. Phosphorus comes in at 86% of daily value, manganese at over 100%. These are not marginal improvements over other grains. These are fundamental differences in nutritional density. But here is what makes amaranth truly strange. It should not be able to do what it does. Amaranth belongs to a small group of plants that use something called C4 photosynthesis, the same metabolic pathway found in corn and sugarcane. This allows it to convert sunlight into energy with extraordinary efficiency, especially under conditions of heat, drought, and low water availability. Where wheat wilts, amaranth thrives. Where rice paddies dry up, amaranth keeps growing. Studies have shown that even when irrigation is severely reduced, amaranth yields remain largely unaffected. One research team exposed amaranth to temperatures of 50 degrees Celsius for hours at a time and found it remarkably tolerant. Only under the most extreme and prolonged heat stress did yields begin to decline. This is why scientists have been paying attention in a world facing climate change, water scarcity, and the need to feed 10 billion people by 2050. A crop that produces complete protein while laughing at drought is not a curiosity. It is a necessity. NASA has studied amaranth as a potential crop for long-duration space missions. The logic is straightforward when you are trying to feed astronauts on a journey to Mars that will last years. You need crops that provide maximum nutrition with minimum resources. Amaranth checks every box. High protein, complete amino acid profile, drought tolerant, fast growing, small seeds that store easily. The space agency included it among the crops identified as having potential for future missions, alongside quinoa and leafy greens. If it is good enough for Mars, the reasoning goes, perhaps it is good enough for Earth. Research published in scientific journals has also revealed something unexpected about amaranth. Extracts from amaranth leaves have shown radioprotective properties in laboratory studies. Mice given amaranth leaf extract before exposure to gamma radiation showed significantly better survival rates than control groups. The plant appears to help protect against radiation-induced damage to cells and DNA. This does not mean eating amaranth will protect you from a nuclear disaster, but it does suggest that this plant has biochemical properties we are only beginning to understand. Properties that ancient cultivators may have intuited without having the scientific vocabulary to explain. The Aztecs who ate this grain daily did not have a word for protein deficiency. They did not need one. So here is the question that should bother everyone who has ever thought about food security. If amaranth is so nutritious, so resilient, so versatile, why is it not on every table in the world? Why do most people in developed nations still not know what it is? The answer is not conspiracy. It is something more insidious. It is the way agricultural systems calcify around a handful of crops, making alternatives invisible even when they are superior. After the Spanish ban, amaranth survived but never recovered its former status. Wheat and corn became the dominant grains of the Americas, supported by colonial infrastructure, trade networks, and cultural prestige. When modern industrial agriculture emerged in the 20th century, it doubled down on this narrow focus. Breeding programs concentrated on improving wheat, rice, and corn. Herbicide systems were designed around these crops. Farm equipment was built for them. Supply chains, processing facilities, storage systems. Entire economies organized themselves around the same few grains that colonial powers had favored. Amaranth fit nowhere in this system. You cannot patent a plant that grows wild. You cannot sell herbicides for a crop that needs almost none. You cannot charge premium prices for something that thrives in poor soil without expensive fertilizers. There was no economic incentive to promote it, so no one did. Agricultural research funding flowed elsewhere. Farmer training programs ignored it. Food processing companies built machinery for wheat flour, not amaranth flour, slowly, methodically, without any single villain making a conscious decision. The most nutritious grain in the Americas became invisible. This is how suppression works in modern times. Not through bans and burned fields, but through institutional neglect, through funding priorities that favor the familiar, through supply chains that have no room for alternatives, through generations of farmers who were never taught that alternatives exist, and yet the plant itself never forgot how to grow. But knowledge does not die. It goes underground and waits. In the Himalayan foothills of India and Nepal, farmers have been cultivating amaranth continuously for centuries. They call it Ramdana, and they eat it during religious fasts because it is considered pure enough to consume when other foods are forbidden. The grain is popped and mixed with jaggery to make sweet treats called laddus. The leaves are cooked as vegetables. Nothing is wasted. This is not famine food. This is tradition, maintained through generations despite the world looking elsewhere. In Gujarat alone, over 12,000 hectares are devoted to amaranth cultivation. The market in Palanpur is one of the largest trading centers for the grain in Asia, exporting to destinations across the globe. In Oaxaca, Mexico, the heartland of amaranth's original cultivation, a revival is underway. Organizations like Puente a la Salud Comunitaria work with local farmers to reintroduce amaranth into traditional farming systems. Not as a novelty, but as what it always was, a staple. Street vendors in Mexico City still sell alegría, those same popped amaranth cakes bound with honey that the Aztecs made 500 years ago, now offered as snacks for the Day of the Dead. The name means joy. Walk through the streets near the Museo de Templo Mayor, and you will find amaranth candy on nearly every corner. A quiet persistence of memory in edible form. In East Africa, amaranth has been identified by agricultural researchers as a strategic crop for addressing malnutrition. Its ability to grow in poor soils with minimal inputs makes it ideal for smallholder farmers who cannot afford expensive fertilizers. Projects in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania are teaching farmers to grow it, process it, and sell it. In some areas, the leaves are more commonly eaten than the grain, providing iron and vitamins that are desperately needed in regions where dietary diversity is limited. The National Research Council of the United States published an entire volume called Lost Crops of Africa, and amaranth features prominently. Recognized as one of the most promising vegetables for the continent's future. In China, according to some estimates, over 100,000 hectares are planted with amaranth, much of it used as high-protein forage for livestock. In Russia, a similar scale of cultivation exists. In Peru and Bolivia, kiwicha has never disappeared from highland farming communities, remaining a premium crop sold at markets in Cusco and La Paz. Andean grandmothers teach their granddaughters how to pop the seeds and mix them with local sweeteners. The same techniques passed down since before the Inca Empire rose and fell. Half the world never forgot. The other half was taught to ignore what was growing in their own backyards. In 1975, the United States National Academy of Sciences published a report that changed everything. They identified amaranth as a crop with high value and agronomic potential, one of dozens of underexploited crops that could help address global food challenges. Research programs began at universities in the American Midwest. By the end of the decade, a few thousand acres were under cultivation in states like Nebraska and Minnesota. The health food movement of the 1980 seconds embraced amaranth as one of its ancient grains, alongside quinoa and millet. Slowly, it began appearing on store shelves. Today, you can find amaranth in most well-stocked grocery stores. It is sold as whole grain, as flour, as puffed cereal, as an ingredient in energy bars and gluten-free products. India has become a major exporter, shipping amaranth around the world to meet growing demand. The global market is expanding, driven by consumers seeking plant-based protein, gluten-free alternatives, and nutrient-dense foods. But the potential remains largely untapped. Amaranth is still grown on only a tiny fraction of the land devoted to major cereals. Most consumers have never heard of it. Most farmers have never planted it. Most agricultural systems still treat it as a specialty crop rather than a staple. That moment of change is now. So here is what you do. Start simple. Look for amaranth in the grain or health food section of your grocery store. It comes as small, golden seeds, about the size of a poppy seed. 1 cup of dry grain expands considerably when cooked, so a little goes a long way. Cook it like you would cook quinoa, 1 cup of amaranth to 2.5 cups of water. Simmered for 20 to 25 minutes until the water is absorbed and the grain is tender. The texture is slightly porridge-like, with a mild, nutty, almost malty flavor. Some people find it slightly sticky when cooked, so mixing it with other grains can help. Try combining it with rice or quinoa at a ratio of 1 part amaranth to 3 parts of the other grain for a more familiar texture with added nutrition. You can pop it like popcorn. Heat a dry pan until very hot. Add a tablespoon of amaranth seeds and watch them burst into tiny white puffs within seconds. Keep the pan moving to prevent burning. These can be eaten as a snack, sprinkled over salads or yogurt, or mixed with honey to make your own version of alegria. Some people grind the popped amaranth into flour for baking, adding it to breads, muffins, or pancakes for extra protein and a subtle nutty flavor. Because amaranth flour lacks gluten, it works best when combined with wheat flour at a ratio of about 1:4, or used in recipes that do not require rising. The leaves are edible too, if you can find them. In Asian grocery stores, they are often sold as Chinese spinach, red spinach, or callaloo. Look for bright red or green leaves that are not wilted. Cook them like any green, sautéed with garlic or added to soups and stews. They cook down quickly, similar to spinach, and have a mild, slightly sweet flavor. In Caribbean cooking, callaloo is the base of a traditional stew that combines the leaves with coconut milk, okra, and sometimes crab or saltfish. The preparation varies from island to island, but the nutritional foundation remains the same. If you have access to garden space, consider growing your own. Amaranth is remarkably easy to cultivate. It thrives in heat, tolerates poor soil, and requires far less water than most vegetables. Plant seeds directly in the ground after the last frost, spacing them about 18 inches apart. The plants grow quickly, reaching 6 to 8 feet tall in ideal conditions, with striking red or gold seed heads that are as ornamental as they are functional. You can harvest leaves throughout the growing season for cooking, then collect the seeds when the plants dry in fall. One plant can produce up to a pound of grain, enough for dozens of meals. One note of caution, like spinach and many other leafy greens, amaranth leaves contain oxalates, which can contribute to kidney stone formation in susceptible individuals. Cooking significantly reduces oxalate content. So if you have a history of kidney stones, stick to cooked preparations rather than raw. The grain is low in oxalates and safe for most people. Reclaim the name that colonial powers tried to erase. When you cook it, when you serve it, call it what it is. Call it huautli if you want to honor its Aztec origins. Call it ramdana if the Hindi meaning resonates with you. Call it kiwicha, alegria, kalalu. Call it amaranth, the unfading flower, the plant that would not die. Every person who plants amaranth in their garden is one more farmer refusing to accept that the same 4 crops must feed the world forever. Every home cook who learns to prepare it is one more voice demonstrating that diversity in our food system is possible. Every community that integrates it into school lunches, food banks, and nutrition programs is one more proof point that better options exist when we choose to see them. This is not about nostalgia. It is about resilience. The same drought tolerance that allowed amaranth to thrive in Aztec agriculture makes it valuable as climate change intensifies. The same nutritional density that sustained indigenous civilizations can address malnutrition in communities that lack access to diverse diets. The same ease of cultivation that made it a staple crop for millennia makes it accessible to home gardeners and small farmers who cannot afford expensive inputs. The grain they burned, the seeds they hunted, the plant they taught you was primitive. The Aztecs knew what they had. 20,000 tons of tribute grain per year does not flow to a capital city for something mediocre. They built ceremonies around it, sculptures of gods, rituals of communion between humans and the divine. The Spanish who destroyed it definitely knew. You do not ban something on pain of death unless you understand its power. They saw a civilization sustained by this grain and recognized that breaking the food system would help break the people. Now you know, amaranth is still here, still growing in gardens from Massachusetts to Mumbai, still feeding families in the highlands of Peru and the hillsides of Nepal, still waiting for anyone willing to plant it, cook it, eat it. For 8,000 years, this grain fed civilizations. For 500 years, empires tried to erase it. For the last 50 years, scientists have been rediscovering what indigenous farmers never forgot. It survived droughts. It survived conquest. It survived centuries of institutional neglect. It can feed you. If this opened something for you, share it. Every share helps preserve knowledge that colonial powers spent centuries trying to erase. Every conversation about forgotten foods is a step toward a more resilient food system. The seeds are still here. The knowledge is still here. What we do with them is up to us. The next story opens soon.